Asterisk new audio log detected from the orphan. Playing now. Asterisk. The air inside the classroom felt heavy with anticipation as the clock ticked closer to the end of the school day. Students shifted in their seats, exchanging worried glances as whispers of uncertainty echoed through the room. Nobody knew exactly what was happening, but the atmosphere was charged with an unspoken fear. Outside, the usual sounds of children playing during recess were conspicuously absent. Instead, there was an eerie silence that seemed to stretch on indefinitely. No laughter, no shouts of joy, just an unsettling stillness that hung over the schoolyard like a thick fog. At precisely 2:40 p.m., the bell rang, signaling the end of the school day. But instead of the usual rush to gather belongings and head home, there was a sense of hesitation among the students. Something was different, and nobody knew what to expect as they filed out of the classroom and into the hallway. As they made their way towards the exit, they were met with an unexpected sight: a line of stern-faced government officials clad in dark suits and sunglasses, blocking the entrance to the school. Their presence sent a shiver down the spines of the students, who exchanged nervous glances with one another. "What's going on?" whispered one student to his friend, but before they could speculate further, a loud voice boomed over the intercom, causing everyone to jump in surprise. "Attention all students and faculty," the voice said, its tone cold and authoritative. "This is an emergency announcement. Please remain calm and follow the instructions of the officials outside. FEAR has been activated for your safety and the safety of the nation." FEAR, the acronym, sent a chill down the spine of every student as they struggled to comprehend what it meant. Some whispered that it stood for Federal Emergency Action Response, while others speculated that it was something far more sinister. Without warning, the government officials began herding the students outside, their movements swift and efficient. Panic rippled through the crowd as they were loaded onto waiting buses, their destination unknown. And so began the nightmare that would engulf every child in America, a nightmare where the promise of safety was nothing more than a cruel illusion, and FEAR became the only reality. The journey from the school to the hospital was a blur of confusion and fear. Students were separated from their belongings, stripped of their personal items, and ushered into sterile white rooms with harsh fluorescent lighting. The air was thick with the scent of disinfectant, making it difficult to breathe. As they were herded into the showers, a sense of humiliation washed over them. Stripped of their individuality, they stood naked and vulnerable under the cold spray of water, their bodies scrubbed clean of any perceived contaminants. There was no privacy, no dignity, only the relentless gaze of the government officials who watched over them with impassive eyes. Once deemed clean, they were issued identical black pants, the uniform of their captivity. There was no distinction between male and female. Everyone was forced to wear the same nondescript clothing, a stark reminder of their collective loss of identity. For the women especially, the lack of underwear or shirts felt like a violation of their dignity. They huddled together, trying to shield themselves from prying eyes, but there was nowhere to hide in the sterile, impersonal environment of the hospital. As they were herded into overcrowded dormitories, the reality of their situation began to sink in. They were prisoners in their own country, stripped of their freedom and their humanity by an unseen enemy called FEAR. But little did they know, The worst was yet to come as they were thrust into a nightmarish world where the line between reality and madness blurred beyond recognition. The rules loomed ominously on the walls of the hospital, their words etched into the very fabric of the building like a twisted manifesto of control. Each directive was written in bold, unforgiving letters, a constant reminder of the new reality they now inhabited. No talk of the old life, the first rule commanded, its message clear and uncompromising. Memories of a time before FEAR were to be buried deep within the recesses of their minds, never to be spoken of again. Any mention of the past was met with swift retribution, as if acknowledging the world that once was posed a threat to the fragile facade of their new existence. No chatter about music, art, or religion, another rule declared, its prohibition stifling any attempt at individual expression or creativity. The very things that had once brought joy and meaning to their lives were now forbidden, deemed irrelevant in the face of the all-encompassing control of FEAR. But it was the section that ranted about the eradication of identity that sent a chill down their spines. Your race, gender, nationality, your family heritage, sexual preference, and preferred likes and dislikes no longer exist, the rule proclaimed, its words dripping with venomous intent. In this new world order, they were no longer individuals with unique identities and experiences. They were mere subjects of the state, stripped of their humanity and reduced to nothing more than cogs in a vast, soulless machine. Their very essence had been erased, replaced by a cold, uniform sameness that left no room for dissent or deviation. As the students shuffled through the sterile corridors, they were met with the sight of government officials wielding syringes like weapons, their faces masked by an unsettling veneer of indifference. One by one, they were herded into examination rooms, where they were subjected to a barrage of medical tests and procedures. There was no room for refusal or dissent. Compliance was not optional in the world of FEAR. The injections came first, a series of needles plunging into their skin with clinical precision. The pain was sharp and sudden, a searing sensation that left them gasping for breath as foreign substances were forcibly introduced into their bodies. They were told it was for their own good, that the vaccinations would protect them from the supposed threat of contamination that lurked outside the walls of the hospital. But as the days turned into weeks and the injections continued unabated, whispers of doubt began to spread among the students. Some complained of unexplained illnesses and mysterious side effects, while others simply felt a gnawing sense of unease that refused to abate. And then there were the pills, small, nondescript tablets that were shoved down their throats without explanation or consent. They were told it was medication to keep them compliant, to dull their senses and quell any rebellious thoughts that might arise. But as the days wore on and the effects of the medication took hold, they began to feel like shadows of their former selves. Their thoughts grew sluggish, their movements lethargic, as if they were trapped in a waking nightmare from which there was no escape. Days stretched into weeks and the weeks into months, the quality of their sustenance steadily deteriorated, a cruel reminder of their dwindling humanity in the face of F.E.A.R's relentless oppression. What had once been nourishing meals became bland and tasteless, devoid of nutrients and sustenance. The vegetables wilted and gray, the meat tough and riddled with gristle. Even the water that flowed from the taps tasted foul, tainted by the metallic tang of neglect and decay. At first, they tried to stomach the meager rations, forcing down each mouthful in a desperate bid to stave off hunger. But as the days wore on and their bodies weakened from malnutrition, even the most resilient among them began to succumb to the ravages of starvation. Nausea became a constant companion, a gnawing ache in the pit of their stomachs that refused to be ignored. And then came the vomiting, violent, uncontrollable retching that racked their bodies with spasms of agony. The stench of bile filled the air, mingling with the sickly sweet odor of decay that seemed to permeate every corner of the hospital. They pleaded with their captors for better food, for clean water, but their cries fell on deaf ears. To the government officials who ruled over them with an iron fist, they were nothing more than expendable pawns in a twisted game of control and domination. And so they suffered in silence, their bodies wasting away as they languished in the darkness of their prison. Each day became a battle for survival, a relentless struggle against the forces that sought to break their spirits and crush their will to resist. The days turned into months and the months into years. The insidious grip of FEAR tightened its hold on every aspect of their lives. No longer were they individuals with names and identities, they were mere numbers, cogs in the machine of oppression, stripped of their humanity and reduced to nothing more than digits on a page. Their names became relics of a bygone era, whispered memories of a time when they were free to choose their own destinies. Now, they were assigned numbers like cattle being branded for slaughter, each one a symbol of their subjugation to the will of their oppressors. Gone were the days when they could call each other by name, when they could laugh and joke and dream of a better future. Now, they were forced to refer to each other by their assigned numbers, the cold, impersonal labels serving as a constant reminder of their dehumanization. 30 years trapped in the suffocating confines of the FEAR boxes had transformed them into shadows of their former selves. What had once been youthful faces filled with hope and promise had now become hollow-eyed masks of despair, haunted by the specter of a future stolen from them. They had grown up within the cold, sterile walls of their prison, their childhood memories tainted by the oppressive atmosphere of fear and control. They had watched as their peers withered away, their bodies ravaged by malnutrition and sickness, until only a fraction remained to bear witness to the nightmare that had become their reality. For 30 years, they had toiled in the darkness, their days consumed by endless monotony and despair. The passage of time had become meaningless, measured not in days or weeks, but in the slow, agonizing descent into madness that seemed to stretch on for eternity. Their bodies had borne the scars of their captivity, emaciated frames, haunted eyes, and minds warped by the relentless onslaught of psychological torture. They had become prisoners of their own minds, trapped in a cycle of despair from which there seemed to be no escape. Swallowed up by the vast, yawning abyss of despair that threatened to consume them all. And so they waited, trapped in a hell of their own making, praying for a miracle that may never come. But then he came. That kid. That orphan. As he was subjected to the normal processing procedures, the other inmates watched with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, expecting him to cower in fear like they had been conditioned to do. But to their astonishment, the rogue teen remained defiant in the face of their oppressors, his gaze steady and unwavering as he met their cold, calculating stares. He seemed to exude a confidence and self-assurance that was foreign to them, a defiance that bordered on madness in the eyes of their captors. And then, in a bold act of rebellion, he did the one thing they had been forbidden to do: he spoke his name. "My name is Johnny Vanjik, the Duke of Lancaster County, PA," he declared, his voice ringing out with a clarity that cut through the suffocating atmosphere of fear and despair. The other inmates held their breath, waiting for the inevitable retribution that would surely follow such brazen defiance. But to their astonishment, the rogue teen's words seemed to strike a chord with those around him, stirring something deep within their hearts that had long lay dormant. And then, with a defiant challenge that echoed through the corridors of their prison, he dared to question the very foundations of their existence. "Tell me, nightmares," he proclaimed, his voice laced with a fiery intensity that burned bright against the darkness that surrounded them. "Do you realize you're not the fear you think you are?" The guard's response was swift and brutal, their fists raining down on Johnny Vanjik with a ferocity born of desperation. They had grown accustomed to the compliance of their prisoners, conditioned to expect nothing but fear and submission in the face of their authority. But Johnny Vanjik was different. He fought back with a strength and resilience that defied explanation, his blows landing with a force that sent shockwaves through the ranks of his oppressors. The drugs that should have dulled his senses and weakened his resolve seemed to have little effect on him, as if his defiance had rendered him immune to their insidious influence. He fought with a primal fury, his movements fluid and precise as he danced through the chaos of the altercation, each blow a testament to his unwavering determination to break free from the chains of oppression that bound them all. The sudden arrival of more guards, armed to the teeth with guns, sent a ripple of fear through the inmates. Johnny Vanjik found himself surrounded, outnumbered, and outgunned, but there was no trace of fear in his eyes. Instead, a steely determination burned within him as he faced down his adversaries. In a heartbeat, the tension in the air reached a fever pitch as the guards tightened their grip on their weapons, their fingers poised on the triggers. But before they could unleash a hail of bullets, Johnny Vanjik moved with lightning speed, drawing a .44 Magnum revolver from seemingly thin air. In a blur of motion, he unleashed a barrage of gunfire, each shot ringing out with deafening clarity in the cramped confines of the FEAR box. The guards never stood a chance as they were cut down in a hail of bullets, their bodies crumpling to the ground in a macabre dance of death. As the chaos unfolded around them, Johnny Vanjik's voice rang out like a clarion call amidst the cacophony of screams and gunfire. "Follow me," he shouted, his words cutting through the chaos with a fierce urgency that brooked no argument. With a sense of awe and determination, the other inmates rallied behind him, their hearts pounding with adrenaline as they charged forward into the fray. Johnny Vanjik led the charge, his every movement a testament to his unwavering resolve to break free from the clutches of their oppressors. As the guards descended upon them like a pack of wolves, Johnny Vanjik fought with a ferocity that bordered on madness, his fists and feet striking out with deadly precision against his adversaries. With each blow, he seemed to defy the very laws of nature, his movements fluid and effortless as he danced through the chaos of the battlefield. But just as victory seemed within their grasp, the lights flickered and died, plunging the corridor into darkness. Panic threatened to consume them as they stumbled blindly through the blackness, their senses overwhelmed by the sudden loss of sight. But Johnny Vanjik was undeterred. With a calmness born of years spent navigating the shadows, he forged ahead, his eyes piercing the darkness with an otherworldly clarity that seemed to defy explanation. For he was not just a man, he was a Vanjik, a creature of the night with senses honed to perfection in the crucible of adversity. And as they followed in his wake, guided by the dim glow of his eyes, the other inmates felt a glimmer of hope ignite within their hearts. For in the darkness of their prison, they knew that as long as they had Johnny Vanjik by their side, they would never again be alone in their fight for freedom. And then they sent them. As Johnny Vanjik and the inmates surged forward, their footsteps echoing loudly against the cold, concrete floor, the flickering emergency lights cast eerie shadows that danced along the walls. Their hearts pounded in their chests, adrenaline fueling their every move as they sprinted towards the promised freedom that lay just beyond their reach. But as they approached the exit, their path was suddenly blocked by the ominous figures of the FEAR agents. Clad in black robes and wielding long scepters, they seemed to materialize from the shadows themselves, their presence suffocating in its intensity. Fear gripped the inmates as they realized they were trapped once more, their hopes of escape dashed against the unforgiving wall of their oppressors. They braced themselves for the inevitable confrontation, steeling their resolve for the final battle that would determine their fate. But just as despair threatened to consume them, a blinding light pierced the darkness, flooding the corridor with the golden glow of sunlight. From the doors leading to the outside, figures emerged, their faces illuminated by the radiant warmth of freedom. In an instant, the FEAR agents recoiled, their dark forms melting away into the shadows from whence they came. Like phantoms fading into the night, they vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a lingering sense of dread in their wake. As the inmates emerged into the light of day, they shielded their eyes against the brilliance of the sun, their hearts filled with a sense of wonder and disbelief. For in that moment, they knew that they had been given a second chance at life, a chance to reclaim their humanity and rebuild the world that had been torn apart by fear and oppression. And though they may never fully understand the mysteries of the world they now inhabited, they knew one thing for certain: as long as they stood together, they would never again be shackled by the chains of fear. For in the light of freedom, anything was possible, and the future was theirs to shape as they saw fit. With the taste of freedom sweet upon their lips, Johnny Vanjik and the liberated inmates basked in the warmth of the sunlight, their faces upturned to the azure sky above. The world lay before them, a vast expanse of possibilities waiting to be explored, and they were determined to seize it with both hands. Their journey was far from over, but for now, they reveled in the simple joy of feeling the sun's rays upon their skin, of breathing in the fresh air of freedom without fear or oppression. And as they looked out at the horizon, they knew that their fight was just beginning. With renewed purpose and determination, they vowed to raid more FEAR boxes, to liberate those still trapped within their suffocating confines and bring an end to the tyranny that had plagued their world for far too long. They would save this earth, one FEAR box at a time, until every last soul was free from the shackles of oppression. But for now, they would savor the moment, for in the midst of darkness, they had found light, and in the depths of despair, they had discovered hope. And as they stood together, united in their quest for freedom, they knew that nothing could stand in their way. End audio log. Fuck you, Lord Eshelman.